It's so weird because as a cop, and I never understood it, my dad tried to explain it to me. While you're going through it, it's almost like things are fake. It's almost like it's not real.
Right.
Like you're just going through almost like a dream. And it's afterwards that the adrenaline slows down and you're like, holy crap, that could have been bad.
All right, welcome to the Chazz Palminteri Show. Every Monday at 11 o'clock. All new episodes, all new guests. John, I'd like to remind everybody, don't forget, if you want to see the one-man show, the show that started it all before the movie, before the musical, the show that De Niro saw that obviously made me famous, and Bob De Niro gave me my big break. I've been doing the show on and off for the past 34 years. That's correct. 34 years. You go to chazzpalminteri.net, and my whole schedule is there. John, where am I going to be for the next
you're going to be March 27th. You're going to be in Lexington, Massachusetts at the Cary Hall. March 29th, you're going to be in Nashua, New Hampshire at the Nashua Center of the Arts. March 30th, you're going to be in Cranston, Rhode Island at the Park Theater.
Love Rhode Island.
And April 11th, you're going to be in Atlantic City at the Ocean Casino Resort.
The Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. So come and check it out. Also, if you want to see it on film, the one-man show, I just filmed it with 5 cameras. It's a whole new experience seeing it on film. You can get it through Amazon, Apple, Google, Fandango, Amazon Prime, so check it out. But to see it in person is a trip. But to see it on film is something else too. So, also, what else we got? Oh, my cigars. Don't forget my cigars, the Bronx Tale cigars. Voted number 8 in the world in boutique cigars. Also, the Colosio cigar from a Bronx Tale collection. Voted number 4 in the world. And John, where could they pick that up?
LCGcigars.com.
LCGcigars.com. My wine, Chazz Palminteri Cabernet, sold all over, especially all the Stu Leonards, all over the country. Stu Leonards. So, and don't forget my merchandise. Look, I sound like I'm on a kiosk over here. Don't forget my merchandise. If you want to buy shirts, A Bronx Tale, Now You Can't Leave, Wasted Talent. One of the great ones. It's a great gift for your lady. We got some great guests. You know me. I always I'm very eclectic. I like to have eclectic guests. All I care about is interesting guests. I had Billy Joel, comedians, Bill Burr, Chrissy Chaos, Krista Stefano, Colin Quinn, a lot of Alan Menken, the musician, and songwriter. So many people I love having on the show. Now, I have a gentleman that we've been friends a long time. He created Blue Lives Matter in New York City. That's correct, right? Yes. Created Blue Lives Matter in New York City. He is a sergeant in the NYPD, my opinion, the greatest police force in the world. And I shout out to all law enforcement, but I'm a little prejudiced because I live in New York. But it's true, NYPD, man. They're the best. And he's here with us today, and I want to speak to him about his life and his defining moment. And how's the city changed from when he started to now? My guess is Sergeant Joe Imperatrice. Joe. So, now, before we get into anything, in your mind, when you were growing up, did you say, I want to be a cop?
I did.
You did?
Because my dad was a cop.
And when your dad, did he say, I want you to do this, or you just kind of followed him into it?
No, it was the opposite. He actually said, like most parents say, is I want you to be better than me. I want you doing nothing with law enforcement. I actually went for nursing. And I did that for about 3 years. It wasn't for me. And thank God for my cousins, because they started becoming police officers and it opened the door for me. And, my dad, one of the most special moments after the academy, I actually wore the same exact shield that my father wore on his chest his entire career. So that was the most important, probably memory in my entire career.
So he took his badge off and gave it to you, and you wore it? Really?
Yeah, so they put it in this box. It's not that appealing.
Right.
And it sits there for years, and sometimes you can't get it because there's another officer that has it, or they take it out of circulation. And my dad surprised me, made a couple phone calls, and on my graduation day, there it was. It was the same exact one that he actually wore. Because as time goes on, they change the shields. They call it redipping.
Right.
But this was actually the only one that was still tarnished, which meant a lot to me.
Now, your dad was on from what year to what year?
So he went on in 1986, which is another weird thing. January 9th, 1986 is when he was sworn in. His 20th anniversary was on my date where I started, January 9th, 2026. So absolutely incredible. He did until December 2001. He hurt his knee. He ended up getting out right after 9/11.
So he did how many years?
15 and a half.
15 years. 15 and a half years.
Yeah.
And you started when?
I started January 9th of 2006.
Have you seen a big difference in the city from 2006 to now?
Yes.
And would you say, yeah, and let's be honest here, it's a free show. Is it been good or bad?
Different. Some moments have been better. A lot of moments
Right.
have been worse. Coming out as a young cop, just in uniform, it didn't matter what political party the DA was a part of in whatever borough. You could put somebody in handcuffs, bring them to jail, and they actually went away to jail. Nowadays, police officers are dealing with bail reform and raise the age, and it's very disheartening when an officer goes out, risks their life, and the criminal is out often more times than before the police officer's done with his paperwork.
Now, would you say that's changing with a different administration? Not yet.
No, not yet, because it's got to come from the governor. The governor has to make it a point to
So
change
it's the
it.
governor who does that.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a political show, but I talk about life and everything. So I see. So that really has to come from the governor.
Yes.
I see. So being a policeman, how long did it take you before you made sergeant?
So I took the test with 3 years on, and I had 5 years, 8 months on. So I was 26 years old telling people my father's age what to do, which was kind of weird. But thank God I started off in the 7-0 precinct in East Flatbush, one of the most diverse precincts out there. And I learned from some of the best cops how to be a real police officer, because there's a difference between the terms of being called a police officer or a cop. When you make it to being called a cop, that's a very big honor.
And a police officer, what does that mean?
It's kind of like you're not there, you're not there yet, you're not respected
Right.
yet, but when you get called a cop, that's when you start being, feeling like you're part of the
Now,
part of the group.
could a person become a sergeant by collars?
No. So people don't understand this. We call them white shield police officers, are the same exact rank as a detective. But the detective ends up going an investigative route, and that's where they get their shield, right? Now, to become a sergeant and then lieutenant, that's a supervisor route. So you cannot ever go from being a sergeant or lieutenant back down to a detective. But you can go from being a detective to being a sergeant.
Wow, so. Are you a detective?
I am a sergeant in the Detective Bureau supervising detectives.
Are you plainclothes?
At times, mostly suit and tie, going out to crime scenes, still going out to shootings, still hitting doors with
Always basically dressed the way you are now.
Yes.
Now, how does one who starts out a policeman, I'm going to have the chief on one day, and a few of the people, they start out as policemen, then they become chief of police. How does that happen?
Listen, it's a lot of dedication, many years, a lot of proving yourself. Of course, there's a lot of tests in between. You can't just...
I mean, in other words, actual test.
Yeah. Civil servant test. You got to take a test for sergeant, lieutenant, and captain. Everything after captain, it's basically discretionary.
Discretionary.
Yeah.
It's pretty much like the army, the military, right?
That's why they say it's paramilitary.
That it's paramilitary.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you feel about people when they say, well, sometimes the NYPD, not just NYPD, all law enforcement, they come in too heavy with the SWAT, with this, or not even SWAT, with the gear, and it scares people. What do you think about that?
It makes me think about the blue line, right? There's that blue line with the black on both sides, and it's so true, because without the officers in the middle of the chaos, this world would be upside down. And it's very hard to explain an officer's job unless you wear that uniform, unless you show up day in, day out. 19 years on, I'm still going out with these younger guys that are going through doors for search warrants. And it's the most dangerous job in the world when you don't know what's on the other side of that door, where there could be a firearm, where there could be somebody waiting in a room with a knife. And these guys are doing this at 4, 5, 6 in the morning in pitch black. Also have to factor in if there's animals or dogs coming at you. You have to factor in if there's young children, which you're not trying to, try to ruin their day or really upset them. There's many other jobs that are dangerous, but these officers, not just in New York City, but everywhere, are putting their lives on the line. Chazz, I say it all the time, other than the military, and we have some very dangerous jobs, right? You don't leave your home and have a real chance that you might not come home at the end of the day. We just had, recently that search warrant officer shot in the shoulder in New York City, and that could have been very bad. You don't ever think it's going to happen to you, but sometimes, unfortunately, that bullet finds its way to you.
How did you decide who was the first one in? Is he always the first one in, or they switch over back and forth?
They could switch, but a lot of people just feel comfortable. Someone will do the ram, someone will do the shield, someone will do what's called cuff and toss. It's what they feel comfortable with, and that's just what they end up doing. Sometimes they do change.
Were you that guy at one time? Were you going in the door?
No, I was the one being a supervisor. You're always at the back end.
You're
always at the back end.
Somebody gets killed, it's hard for you guys. You take it very seriously. And you should, of course.
Yeah, the last one was Jonathan Diller. We just held my gala last March. And a week later, you get told that a 20-something-year-old that puts on the uniform just like you, that shows up to work, has a child less than a year old, young wife, gets shot and killed. And what I can say is, from my first moment, hearing the first officer in my career, which I believe was Russell Timoshenko back in 2007, all the way to now, it never gets easier. And it's hard to explain. It's almost like being in a sorority or fraternity, right?
Right.
They're family, whether you've met them, whether you haven't. A part of you goes missing when you hear that another officer shot and killed in the line of duty.
Wow. Is that why you started Blue Lives Matter in New York, Joe?
Yeah, so what it was...
And their partner?
Yeah, so back in the day... it's always been officers supporting each other, but then there was the Michael Brown situation, Eric Gardner, and it seemed like every day on the front page of the paper or the news, an officer was being attacked, they were being demonized. And then in New York City, we had Detectives Ramos and Lou shot and killed. And I remember it was in December.
That was brutal.
Yeah, on December 20th, right before Christmas, right? Getting ready for the holidays. And Rafael Ramos's was the first one. And it was freezing cold out there. And we were blocks away online to get in to see the body of Officer Ramos. And you saw patches from everywhere. And that's when I realized we've always supported each other, but officers everywhere have had enough. And the problem is tomorrow after the funeral, everyone's going to go their own separate ways. How do we continue the support, not just with the police, but with the public? And a lot of people remember we came out with the Blue Lives Matter wristbands. I still wear it.
Yeah.
And it took off. And 10 years later, raised approximately $4 million with a 501c3. Not one person's on salary. And the goal is to take care of the families of officers killed in the line of duty or diagnosed with life-threatening disease. And Chazz, if you've seen, it's turned into even more with these little children that are dying of a terminal illness or cancer that we fly in.
I know.
All expenses paid. We swear them in as police officers, give them a trip that they probably would have never had, showing the public that police officers are human.
It never gets easier. It's a hard thing.
Especially with the kids. I give the parents so much credit because I don't know how they do it. They wake up every day.
Yeah.
And they know it's one day closer to that little boy or girl not being there. And these kids going through all the needles and the pokes and in and out of the hospital, and they got the smile on their face, and they're like little Abigail Irish. They're relentless. Just relentless.
Oh, God. Now, I like to... What would you say, Joe, in your life... Everybody has them, but sometimes you got to think about it. And I like to wait till they're on the air before I ask them because, it makes you really think about it. What would you say where you are now? And we're going to talk about your aspirations as politics. But before that, what was your feeling that said a defining moment that changed your life? Like a defining moment that changed my life was when Robert De Niro saw me do the show. That was like, and then he gave me my break. That was like a defining moment that started me off. What would you say your defining moment is?
I'm going to take a page out of your book. I have your card that says the saddest thing in life is wasted talent. Well, for me, it was waking up every day and feeling like I could do more. I didn't like seeing people be bullied. I didn't like seeing negativity. You know, I have a good friend that told me, Joe, you're so great at selling hope. You know, even if it's the darkest times, you have to give people a feeling that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and tomorrow's going to get better. So I've always had it in me to want to make somebody else's life better when they're having their worst times. And that's what's always made me feel like I had a purpose.
Wow. And was there one moment that did that, or you just every day you had this thing you wanted to do more?
Collectively, since I'm little, I always take in the experiences. I've always been one of those people that been older than what I am,
Yes.
and seeing the way my grandfathers held themselves and the way my parents held themselves. And I think collectively, all my experiences as a whole. And I always wanted to make people proud, but I also wanted to influence the people around me so that maybe one can go out there and do the same thing and spread that. That's just the way I've lived.
Yeah. Do one, if you help one.
Correct.
If you help one. I always say that. Now, yeah, there's an old story that there's that guy on the beach, and he's walking down the beach, and all these starfish are all over the beach, and he picks up the starfish, and he just picks one up and throws it in, walks a little more, picks another one up, throws it in. And a guy walks over to him and says, "What the hell are you doing?" He says, I'm saving the starfish. He says, "You can't save all the starfish on the beach." He goes, "I just saved that one."
Yeah.
And I never forgot that. You know, it made me think that, well, you know, I just saved him. So now you're getting ready to retire, you think, right? You think?
It's getting close. I could leave in about 9 months. And
9 months.
yeah, with everything that Blue Lives has brought, for instance, you know, Chazz Palminteri, I remember seeing you in your movie as a little boy, right? Because I was born in 1984,
Wow.
right? So little boy, did I ever think that I'd be sitting next to you and, you know, you've become like an uncle in my life, just listening to you and doing good things. And Joe Piscopo, did I ever think someone like Joe Piscopo
Right.
was going to be in my life? No. So the doors have opened, and I just want to continue doing good things. I want to keep influencing people. I have a 6.5-year-old boy that I want him to be so proud of his daddy. I want to be able to give him experiences I couldn't have, because that's my number one goal, is to be in my
Right.
son's life and make him be the best boy and adult he
Well,
can be.
I mean, obviously you come from great stock, mother and father, you know.
Yeah.
Now, you have any brothers on the job?
No, I don't. I've had uncles. I've had
Yeah, are
cousins.
you the only child?
No, I have a younger brother and younger sister.
And they're not on the job?
Nope.
Right, that's weird. Now, what do you do when your son gets older? He wants to be a cop.
So he tells me he wants to be a soccer player like Ronaldo.
Hey, Ronaldo, that'd be great.
He wants to do that. He wants to be an army man, and he wants to be a police officer.
You know what? When they're that age, they want to be Superman. They want to be everything.
Yes, they do.
So do you have aspirations maybe about going to politics, Joe?
Yeah, I've thought about it. I've been asked so many times. And if I can somehow help New York City, New York State, be a better place, I'm open for it. If God opens that door and he asks me to walk through it, I'm there. But until then, I just want to keep on doing good things.
Wow. Now, would you come in like a councilman, a mayor? Would you jump right in the heat, you think?
You know, I like being the underdog. I like being told you can't do something. You know, I went into high school as a little chubby boy and left as the homecoming king, baseball captain,
Wow. Okay.
leading my play. You know what? I'm noticing, especially with, you know, Lee Zeldin running for office for governor. Governor's where you're going to make the most change in New York
governor.
State is governor.
More
You want to
than
be
mayor.
If you want to be a rock star, you become the mayor of New York City. You know, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, that's the mayor. To sit down and get things done and actually get things done, that's going to be the governor. So we'll see. We'll see what happens in the coming years.
Now, were you on the job when Giuliani was here?
I wasn't, but he's one of the reasons, him and Bernard Kerik, why I became a police officer. And, you know, incredible, because last week I got to go to West Palm and sit with Rudy and have some cigars and pick his brain and ask him about 9/11 and just a figurehead. There's a reason why he's called America's mayor.
Do you remember your first collar?
I do. I was in the car driving the sergeant, and it was 2 arrests for robbery. It was a gentleman that ended up grabbing the necklace off of somebody's neck, and it came over the air, and you're anxious. Wow, this is really happening. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like the first time you're with a girl. You're so excited, and you're like, wow, it's happening.
Right.
But I remember we're in the car, and there it is. That we got the person in the back seat. The people round the corner. They said, "That's the person." I jump out and handcuffs on both, and I'm like, holy crap. And I'll never forget it, Chazz, because I go back and we got anti-crime cops, right? They're the best cops in the precinct. They're in plain clothes. They always go for guns and drugs. And we got a guy, Tommy Porter, that comes over. He's in Boston now. And he looks at my arrest. He goes, "This guy's a gang member." I said, "How the hell do you know that?" And I didn't understand till years later. It's just the experience. I always looked up to those great cops. And yeah, that was my first arrest ever, was 2 robbery collars.
And when you jumped out, they didn't fight you or resist?
No, I was surprised. I'm like, am I going to run? Am I not going to run? Do I draw my firearm? It's going to be easy. And just put them up against the wall, I remember, put them in handcuffs right away. And without an incident, we ended up getting to both of them.
Now, I know policemen who were on the job 30 years, never pulled their gun out.
Yeah.
I hear that. Have you ever pulled your gun out?
Yes. And it's not, I don't think a cop ever wants to pull their gun out, because what happens is the city or the state, let's say New York City, tells you, Chazz Palminteri, we're going to give you a gun and a badge. And in a matter of a second, you have to make the decision to save a life or take a life. It's a big responsibility. And what people don't realize is even when a police officer discharges their firearm, bad guy or not, that's a tragedy. Someone's losing their life, or their life is forever changed on both ends. So no police officer ever wants to show up and ever have to use it. They always want compliance. They want to go home at the same way that they showed up, with the same holes in their body, not more. But unfortunately, sometimes situations happen where officers have to make a decision.
Could you tell me when the first time you pulled out a gun?
That I don't know. It's been many times.
Many times. So
And just
many
thank God.
times.
Yeah, just thank God I never had to use it.
So you never really shot?
I never had to, other than at the range, and that's the way every officer
No one
wants
has
to
ever
be.
shot back at you.
There was one time that we a group of males were stabbing each other. Somebody dropped a gun. Another bad guy picks up that gun, and as he's going to shoot that individual, I see the muzzle flashes coming my way. Wow. It was July 4th weekend. I'll never forget that. And thank God nobody got hit. We were able to put everyone in handcuffs without any further incident. No one lost their life. Myself and the officers around me didn't get hurt, and that was a good day.
When you're chasing someone in an alleyway or down the street, and the guy turns and shoots, how does that change things?
It's so weird, because as a cop, and I never understood it, my dad tried to explain it to me. While you're going through it, it's almost like things are fake. It's almost like it's not real.
Right.
Like you're just going through almost like a dream. And it's afterwards that the adrenaline slows down. And you're like, holy crap, that could have been bad. Or, wow, did we just do that? Or, wow, that just happened.
Right.
It's the after effect you feel,
When a person shoots at a cop, do you guys want to get him even more now, or
The goal never changes. The goal is to always just get that bad guy, to make sure that you and your officers don't get hurt. That's the number one priority. And to make sure the people in the surrounding area, even the bad guy, you don't want them to get hurt. As bad as that seems, or people might not understand, the goal is to make it as easy as possible, put somebody in handcuffs. That's the situation you want at the end of the day.
Okay, so these are questions I always like to ask. If a person shoots at two cops, misses, turns around, runs, you could see clearly he's still got the gun in his hand. Yeah. There's all these people he's running up to, a school bus with kids. Is a policeman allowed to shoot him in the back?
Not unless there's an imminent threat of serious physical harm or death. So unless that guy turns around and points that gun right back at you, technically you can't. But then on top of that,
he's running towards the kids with a gun.
You got to be careful, because what happens if you miss and now you're killing a kid and now they're not going home to their family? There's a lot for police officers. Once again, in a split second, take a life or save a life.
How you guys got to make decisions like this, Joe.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Have you been around a policeman who just killed someone?
Yeah, yes, I have.
And how do they usually take it?
They try to always make it seem like they're okay, but the problem is how are they when nobody's around? Because that's a traumatic incident. Even getting shot at just recently in Staten Island, police officers were shot at. Their vehicle was hit with bullets. And I talked to one of the officers a couple of days later. He said, you don't realize a couple of days later, you'll be sleeping and you'll jump up because you feel like you're back in it again. What happens if I get hit? And a lot of these people have kids, and that's what they worry about. They worry about if I wasn't able to come home to my son or daughter or my wife or my parents. It's the after effects. And you don't realize it's a form of PTSD. And that's why we need more help for our first responders and our military members to make sure that mentally they're okay, to not make any brash decisions, not hit the bottle, not think about suicide. That's why we need to help our first responders and military professionals more, because of situations like that.
Is there a high percentage of cops who commit suicide?
There are, unfortunately. Just a couple of years ago, I believe it was either 11 or 13 in 1 year that are active, not including even the retired officers.
Wow. And you really feel that's from PTSD?
Absolutely. But listen, there's other factors too. They're human beings. They have home lives. They got to pay their bills. Is someone in their family sick? Do they feel like the wall's closing in on them? There's many, many factors. But I think the job definitely plays a role in it in some way, shape, or form.
I mean, were you happy when you woke up every morning to go to work?
I am, because you know what it is? It's the experiences of the people around you. I say it all the time. Being a police officer, you're surrounded by like the all-star team of the world. You got people from all over the world that you would have never, ever met that all want to wear that uniform
Right.
and want to help people. The jokes, the screwing around, getting to know their families.
Right.
You see these people more than your own families. You know, you see them 5, 6, 7 days a week sometimes.
Many years ago, because I've had a lot, obviously I have a lot of friends that cop, they said your partner is everything. You trust your partner more than, it's almost like you're with your partner more than your wife. Is it still like that?
It is. My partner, he's a detective in emergency service unit right now. And we just met for the first time in years for breakfast about 3 weeks ago. And it was like we never left. And you would just look at each other and you knew, okay, there's a gun in the car, or we wouldn't have to say a word. And when you have a relationship like that, everything is so much easier. And the main goal was to make sure he went home and I went home and that we did our job. And we did. And I miss it. That's the one thing with being a supervisor is you don't have that one-on-one partnership anymore. You have a group of guys and now you're the leader. You're the parent. But I do miss those days.
Okay, so basically now you're the leader.
Yeah, you're
And
one of them.
How many cops you have working under you?
So it depends. You know, an average sergeant in a squad has 8. Narcotics teams could have 5 to 8. It all depends.
So, just curious, what's your typical day like? What do? You get up, where do you go?
So being in the Detective Bureau, I think it's the best unit ever because you're always doing investigations. And in my role, I get to work with both the detectives in the detective squad and also the detectives in narcotics and violent crime squads that are doing search warrants and buying drugs and working with, confidential informants. So with 19 years on, I'm still seeing the real deal and being a part of it and getting the high and seeing the great work that these men and women are doing.
Now, these cops that are, that's pretty dangerous. Being undercover when you buy and sell drugs, that's pretty dangerous, right?
One of the most dangerous jobs in the world.
Now, are these guys usually wired or no?
Yes, and they do have backup, blocks away. But if a situation goes bad, they're on their own for seconds, if not minutes, and it feels like an eternity.
But isn't it, but Joe, I always thought about that. If and maybe because I don't have the mentality of a bad guy. If a bad guy says he's a cop and they bust him as a cop, don't they know if they kill him, they're fucked? He's a cop. They don't care.
You had Namord and Andrews, two detectives that were killed trying to buy a gun in Staten Island over a decade ago. And that perp just, after shooting them, just threw them out the backseat of a car like a dog and let them die. And thank God they got him. But these guys put their lives in harm's way every single day. The public has no idea every second, every minute, the work that the police officers are doing. And there's so many different units. It's not just uniform guys that are going out there. Plain clothes, there's task forces, there's feds, so many units in policing. And it's such a dangerous job. And you don't see and hear of all the great work that's happening on a daily basis.
It's like you guys are like umpires. We don't notice you till you fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
You got to admit, and I say this honestly, once in a while you get a bad cop that is just too much, or he's a cowboy, whatever. But to me, that I don't see that doesn't happen often.
But that's every profession. I guarantee you there's actors that you've worked with that you're like, this guy or girl, they're jerks. It's the same thing anywhere. But when it comes to bad cops, good cops don't want them around.
Right. The worst thing is a good cop doesn't want them around.
Never.
Right. Now, if a cop, and again, I don't want you to talk out of school, but if a cop has too many complaints, do they do something to him?
Yeah, there's so much oversight in policing nowadays. Not just internal affairs or civilian complaint review board or this monitor or that monitor, the supervision that they have every day. But you call it like shelving them. They could have a desk job. They can get reassigned. They get asked, what's going on? Is something going on? But the problem is, too, is that people don't realize, right? Me being an active cop, the more you go out there and put people in handcuffs, the more complaints you're going to get. It's just part of the job. I'm not going to sugarcoat it or say the cop is always doing something wrong because they're not. There's criminals that you could treat like your father, but while they're in those cells, they're listening to the career criminals and saying, here's a number, retaliate against them. Call this number because you're going to get them in trouble. There's a lot of times that cops aren't doing anything wrong, but they're still being served with.
I've seen that. I've watched those shows where the cop, you stop somebody for, on the highway, and the person is like a mother, cursing at him, spitting at him, yelling at him. And then when they get to the station, he attacked me. They're saying, that guy did this, that guy. And I'm saying to myself, Hey, Brent, man, you're on tape, bro.
Yeah.
You know, but they just, it's fucking
There needs to be a
amazing.
fairer process for these cops because they literally are doing God's work, putting their lives on the line. And police departments all over should not be entertaining things that are not real. By all means, if a cop did something wrong, they should be reprimanded or be told, hey, you can't do that. But to go after good cops for doing their job, that's not fair. That's not fair to these people.
So I know my producer, John. John, you have some questions you want to ask Sergeant?
Yeah, I mean, right now, a lot of stuff's happening with the NYPD, whether it's for the best or for the worst. But I'm kind of curious, like, where do you see the NYPD in a few years? What are some of the biggest challenges that you guys face currently?
So police departments like the NYPD, they're always going to be resilient. They're always going to be there. Law enforcement's not going anywhere. Biggest problem is these rules and these laws that politicians make. My personal opinion is they should sit down with the professionals and speak to them first before just implementing something that's not good for the public. That's number one. Bail reform, raise the age, the diaphragm bill that Mayor de Blasio put in. These aren't things that are helping anybody. It's actually sometimes making cops second guess themselves from acting. We don't want that. We want a clear mind. We want someone to be definitive. It's when they move forward and make a decision because we don't want them or the public getting hurt ever.
I do have another question, and I'm kind of curious, like, what the training process is. I know you said that you have to make a decision on the drop of a
Is
dime.
it 8 weeks, 16 weeks?
No, it's 6 months. The academy is still 6 months, and it's out of Queens. You get basic. At the end of the day, it's hands-on training. Even me, you go to the academy and you're like, I know what I'm doing. I'm ready. I'm full of piss and vinegar. No, you're not. It's from the experiences that you're going to go out there and speaking with the public and having a call coming over that a kid is choking or unresponsive, showing up to a scene where someone was just shot in the head and, they're going out the picture. A domestic violence situation where you don't know what's going to happen on the other side of that door. Is the person going to turn on you? Where are my partners? The academy is great in law enforcement everywhere. But once again, you're not going to get the experience until after you get out there and actually start doing it.
I have one final question for you, and that's, what's like one memory that sticks out to you in the NYPD, whether it's good or bad?
Oh, man. So there's two that stick out to me. Well, three. A couple years ago on Halloween, there was the incident where the person rented the Home Depot truck, went up the West Side Highway, and killed all the individuals that were here that were visiting on a high school trip. I was the first supervisor there. That was my crime scene. So seeing that kind of surreal, it sticks with you. Another one is getting a call for an unresponsive child. Go on Coney Island Avenue, open up the door, go to the bedroom. It's a family that doesn't really speak English well, but you can see that the little girl was born with a lot of problems. Fire department shows up, cold to the touch, and us in the fire department race her down the steps, do an escort to the hospital, and she didn't make it. That sticks with you. And probably the other one is I get called to the scene. I think the kid was like 14 or 15, had an argument with his girlfriend. Girlfriend stabs him with an object. She's in the wind. We go there, and the kid's not bleeding. He's sitting on the chair. He's very combative. No blood stains, no nothing. Looks like a little puncture wound, but just by looking at it, doesn't look like anything crazy. But the mother grabs me, pulls me to the side, and I was a supervisor, and she says, Sarge, can you please have him go to the hospital? I just want him checked out. So I go over to him, and I say, listen to Mom. Put her at ease. You'll be home in a couple hours. Just go check it out. Well, you go on your day like anything else. Months later, I'm at a deli across from that street, from that building. I hear somebody, officer. I turn around, and this woman has tears coming down her face. And she goes, officer, if it wasn't for you, my son would be dead. Now, I don't know. I interact with a lot of people. I said, ma'am, what do you mean? She goes, you were the one that showed up after that girl stabbed my son. And when he went to the hospital, the doctor said he had internal bleeding. And if he did not go to the hospital by the next morning, he would have woke up dead. And she goes, because of you, my son is alive.
Wow.
And that's what officers do every day. They don't do it for the glory. They don't do it for anything. They go on with their lives and don't realize how many lives they're positively affecting, that they'll never be able to hear stories like that.
Joe, you're a saint, brother.
Oh, thank you.
I've seen you on many shows. I mean, you got that thing. I don't know, Joey. It looks like you're going to be mayor, governor, or something. Hey, listen, I would vote for you, man.
I appreciate that.
You're a good man, and that's all. That's what I want in my politicians. Just be a good man.
I think you'll agree. People just want sincerity. They don't want the BS no more. They don't want the lies. They just want honesty. They want people that are going to make their tomorrows better than today. They want to hear that you're saying something and you're going to do it, that there's no shadiness. And that's what we should aspire to be as individuals, but hope out of everybody, right? And it starts
Right.
from the home. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Like I said, I just want to keep in a world that's sometimes upside down. I just want to give people hope and do good things.
Well, if you decide to run, I got to have you back on the show then.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Joe, how do you say Imperatrice?
Imperatrice.
Imperatrice. Sergeant Joseph Imperatrice. What a great name.
Oh, thank you. It means empress.
It means Empress?
Yes, sir.
God bless you, my friend.
I appreciate you. Thank you, Chazz.
Thank you. All right, listen. That was the Chazz Palminteri Show. We will see you next week. Don't forget the website, chazzpalminteri.net. See me. I'm at a theater near you all over the country. God bless.